The 1986 Chernobyl nuclear power plant accident remains one of the most mysterious disasters in history. While official sources attribute the tragedy to technical errors and human error, there are other versions of events that cast doubt on these explanations. In 2024, new information that appeared on a closed forum shed light on the possible involvement of the military in the events and pointed to secret experiments that could have led to the disaster. According to this version, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant was used not only as a power plant, but also as a facility for secret tests that included work with electromagnetic fields and other advanced technologies. This theory pays particular attention to the Duga radar located near the plant. Duga, also known as the Russian woodpecker, was part of an early warning system for missile attacks. However, new information suggests that the facility may have had other, even more secretive purposes. The leaks, published in 2024, include documents allegedly from Soviet military archives. They describe a series of experiments carried out on the basis of the Duga radar to investigate the possibility of influencing atmospheric and electromagnetic fields. Some of these documents indicate that some of the experiments could have been integrated with the operation of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. On the night of the 26th of April, 1986, when the disaster occurred, a test was allegedly taking place at the NPP, which concerned not only the operation of the reactor, but also the use of new technologies that investigated the interaction of nuclear energy with electromagnetic fields. One of the key points of the new findings is evidence of unusual military activity near the plant in the days before the explosion. Several former workers at the plant, who have remained silent for more than 3 decades, said that on the night before the accident they saw military trucks and groups of people in special protective clothing working in an area that civilian specialists would not normally have access to. According to witnesses, they also noticed strange power surges on the equipment that night, which could indicate external interference. Documents released in 2024 described that one of the secret experiments involved the creation of an electromagnetic anomaly that was supposed to affect the operation of the reactor in order to test new technologies. However, due to a miscalculation or an unfortunate set of circumstances, the experiment went out of control, causing a massive explosion. One of the engineers working at the plant at the time recalled that at the time of the accident, he felt a sudden, strong electromagnetic pulse that could have disrupted the control systems. Another part of the leaks contains information that after the disaster, all documents related to the operation of the Duga radar and secret programs were immediately classified. Those specialists who had participated in the experiments were either transferred to other facilities or disappeared without a trace. The families of several scientists claimed that their loved ones disappeared within days of the accident, and all attempts to find out their fate have been unsuccessful. Moreover, some documents related to military research at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant are still classified as top secret. The following questions remain. Could experiments using electromagnetic fields have actually caused the explosion? And if this is true, what exactly was the military trying to investigate? In 2024, the publication of these documents sparked a wave of debate, but official sources continued to deny any military involvement in the events that led to the disaster. Was Chernobyl really the site of secret tests that got out of hand? The answers to these questions are still outside the official archives, but new leaks are shedding light on the hidden history of one of the greatest tragedies in human history. In April 2024, a new leak appeared on a closed internet forum, which once again drew attention to the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. The information that became available related to one of the most mysterious ideas that have accompanied the tragedy since its inception: the theory of alien intervention in the events that led to the explosion at the 4th power unit of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The new evidence has fueled long-standing theories that the explosion at the plant may not have been accidental, but part of a larger event beyond human control, involving the intervention of extraterrestrial civilizations. This theory originates from numerous eyewitness reports that claim to have seen UFOs near the Chernobyl plant before and after the disaster. As early as 1986, there was evidence that strange objects were observed several times in the sky above the nuclear power plant in the days before the explosion. Some witnesses spoke of bright glowing orbs or disc-shaped objects hovering in the air above the plant and disappearing after a few minutes. However, these claims were not taken seriously at the time, and most of them remained unconfirmed. In a new leak published in 2024, an anonymous informant who claimed to have worked at a military facility near Chernobyl revealed previously unknown facts. According to him, on the night before the explosion, military radars detected several unknown objects moving at high speed towards the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. These objects did not respond to attempts to communicate, and their movement did not match the trajectories of any known aircraft. According to radar data, the objects hovered over the plant for several minutes and then disappeared from radar as quickly as they appeared. According to the informant, this information was classified almost immediately after the crash, and all radar records related to these objects were seized by the Soviet military. However, he claimed that military operators at the radar stations confirmed the presence of the objects and even discussed their anomalous behavior among themselves. The informant further added that on the day of the disaster, at approximately 1:23, when the accident began, a strange electromagnetic pulse was recorded that could not be explained by natural phenomena or technical problems at the station. This pulse was accompanied by short-term shutdowns of some electronic systems in the Chernobyl zone. What made the situation even more mysterious was that abnormal spikes in the operation of electronic devices were also recorded at military facilities near the plant. Some communication and radar control systems did not work for several minutes after the accident began. The technical reports documenting these anomalies were classified, and all witnesses to the events were ordered not to disclose the information. However, the whistleblower claimed to have retained copies of some of the technical reports that confirmed these events. The real sensation of this leak was several photographs, which, according to the informant, were taken by the Soviet military from a helicopter patrolling the exclusion zone shortly after the accident. These pictures show a dark, oval-shaped object hovering over the damaged fourth reactor. According to the helicopter pilot, the object did not emit heat and did not make any sudden movements, just hovering over the crash site. A few minutes later, the object disappeared from view as suddenly as it had appeared. The pilot and other crew members discussed the phenomenon with each other, but were strictly ordered not to disclose any details of the incident. Materials related to the object were quickly classified by the Soviet military. The published photos caused a wave of discussion among conspiracy theorists. Some experts who studied the materials suggested that this object could have been part of an extraterrestrial mission that intervened in the events at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. According to one version, the aliens could have intervened to mitigate the consequences of the disaster or even try to prevent it. This version was partly confirmed by the fact that the radiation level in the area immediately around the reactor, according to eyewitnesses, was lower than expected. Another important aspect of this story concerns the testimony of military personnel who worked at facilities near the exclusion zone. One of these witnesses claimed that a few months before the accident, they had seen a UFO traveling at high speed and suddenly hovering over the reactors. According to this soldier, this was not the first time he had seen such objects in the vicinity of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Other military personnel also mentioned similar phenomena, but they were all classified. After the disaster, the Soviet authorities refused to comment on these events. An anonymous informant also provided information about other unexplained phenomena that occurred in the exclusion zone in the days following the explosion. He claimed that the military recorded strange light flashes in the sky, as well as a series of electromagnetic disturbances that could not be explained by any technical or natural factors. In particular, radio communications in the area were disrupted for several days after the crash, which caused additional problems in coordinating the response to the accident. This new evidence has caused a wave of interest among researchers of anomalous phenomena and ufologists. Some of them believe that the presence of alien objects during or after the crash may indicate their attempt to intervene to prevent an even greater tragedy. According to one version put forward by conspiracy theorists, aliens could be interested in maintaining the stability of the Earth because of fears that the spread of radiation would lead to global catastrophic consequences. They could try to minimize radiation contamination or even prevent a chain reaction that could cause even greater destruction. However, critics of this theory point out that the evidence is difficult to confirm, as most of the material remains classified and the witnesses are anonymous. Some of the material provided, such as photographs, could have been falsified or misinterpreted. In addition, there is a possibility that some of the electromagnetic disturbances and strange objects could have been the result of technical problems or natural phenomena that occurred as a result of the accident. Despite the criticism, many supporters of the alien intervention theory believe that the coincidence of circumstances and the number of testimonies cannot be accidental. They argue that the Chernobyl disaster could have been part of a larger plan or even the result of interference from an extraterrestrial civilization. Given other cases where UFOs have been observed near nuclear facilities in different parts of the world, this hypothesis seems quite likely to some researchers. These new materials released in 2024 only reinforce old questions. Could aliens really have been involved in the events at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant? Is it possible that they were not only observing the development of technology on Earth, but also trying to interfere in critical moments of history related to nuclear energy? And if so, what were their true motives? Were they trying to save humanity from a catastrophe, or were they using it for their own purposes? As long as these questions remain unanswered, the story of possible alien intervention in the Chernobyl disaster continues to arouse interest and disagreement among scientists and conspiracy theorists. In April 2024, new shocking data emerged in closed online communities that revealed another, darker side of the Chernobyl disaster. The documents and testimonies that leaked online highlighted the version that secret experiments on humans were carried out during and after the Chernobyl disaster. These experiments, according to the new data, were organized by the Soviet secret services, using the disaster as a cover for cruel scientific experiments. A user under the pseudonym GhostDoc, who claimed to have worked at one of the military facilities in the exclusion zone in the late 1980s, posted a series of documents and testimonies that shed light on these events. According to him, immediately after the explosion, a special group was set up at the station to not only eliminate the consequences of the disaster, but also to collect scientific data for experiments on the victims. The group paid special attention to both the liquidators of the accident and local residents whose evacuation was deliberately delayed. GhostDoc claimed that even before the Chernobyl disaster, the Soviet Union had been conducting secret research in the field of radiation genetics, which is the study of the effects of high doses of radiation on the human body and psyche. The explosion at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant provided a unique opportunity to carry out these experiments in real life. According to the leak, some radiation victims deliberately remained unevacuated in the first days after the explosion, so that observations and scientific experiments could be conducted on them. The materials published by GhostDoc show the existence of a secret program codenamed Reactor, which was coordinated by the USSR Ministry of Defense and the KGB. The program was aimed at studying the effects of radiation on the human body. The liquidators who took part in the liquidation of the accident and residents of nearby villages were closely monitored by military doctors. According to the documents, some of these people were involved in the experiments without their knowledge. One of the most frightening aspects of this program was that medical experiments were conducted on radiation victims using new drugs. According to the informant, some liquidators who worked in the most dangerous areas of the reactor were given special injections. According to official statements, these drugs were supposed to protect them from radiation. However, in reality, They were part of experiments to study the effects of radiation on human DNA and the immune system. Many liquidators who received these injections disappeared without a trace. Their files were classified and their medical records destroyed. The testimonies also mention a special laboratory that operated in the exclusion zone for several years after the disaster. Ghost Doc claimed that this laboratory was studying the long-term effects of radiation on the human body. It housed people who had been exposed to the highest doses of radiation and conducted research on them, observing changes in their health over time. These people became living specimens for experiments, and their names were erased from all official documents. According to the informant, these people never received proper medical care and were effectively abandoned to their fate after the research was completed. Another shocking aspect of this leak was the information about psychological experiments conducted on the liquidators. According to the documents, some liquidators were deliberately exposed to various psychotropic substances. The aim was to study how radiation affects the human psyche in combination with chemicals. Military doctors were looking for ways to create radioactively adapted soldiers who could function in radiation conditions and maintain combat capability in hazardous areas. The results of these experiments show that the effect of psychotropic substances on people who had already been exposed to radiation was much stronger. In some cases, the liquidators lost the ability to control their behavior, became overly aggressive, or fell into a state of complete apathy. One of the most disturbing aspects of these leaks was the evidence that many liquidators were deliberately denied the necessary medical treatment after the experiments. Some of them, who remained under the supervision of military doctors, never received help after the experiments were completed. According to Ghost Doc, this was part of the plan so that scientists could observe how the effects of radiation exposure develop without medical intervention. Some liquidators simply disappeared after they were no longer useful for the experiments. Their bodies were never found, and official reports of their deaths were either classified or falsified. The new materials released in 2024 have caused deep concern among the public and scientists. If this information is true, the Chernobyl disaster was not only one of the largest man-made tragedies in history, but also a cover for the most brutal experiments on humans. The fact that people were used as test subjects for medical and psychological research during this disaster shows the absolutely inhuman attitude of the state system. Official authorities have not yet commented on this evidence, and most of the materials remain classified. Nevertheless, the new data has sparked a wave of debate among researchers and journalists who have begun to scrutinize possible evidence of such experiments. Some historians believe that these experiments may have been part of a larger program to study radiation effects that the Soviet government has been conducting since the 1950s. The question of whether the Chernobyl disaster was really used as a pretext for secret experiments on victims remains open, but if we take into account all the leaks and testimonies, it becomes obvious that many pages of this tragedy still remain hidden. The story of Chernobyl may be much more complex and dark than we could ever imagine, and the truth about these events is only just beginning to surface. Did the Soviet government really use liquidators and victims as experimental subjects? And were these experiments part of a broader research effort into radiation and its effects on humans? The answers to these questions are likely to remain hidden for many years, if not forever.